The FedEx box was stained with mildew. It had been forwarded from Dr. Aris Thorne's old CDC office, a place that had cleared his name off the door before he'd even cleared his desk. He slit the tape with a pocket knife, the faint, sweet rot smell of the Appalachians rising from the cardboard. Inside, nestled in damp newspaper, was a battery-powered audio recorder. Liam's. Aris hadn't wanted to be a mycologist. He'd wanted to be a boxer. He had the build for it, a light heavyweight's frame, all dense muscle and scar tissue over the knuckles. But science had been the family trade. Boxing was just for managing the anger. And Aris was very, very angry. The CDC hadn't just fired him, they'd buried him, branding his theories on historic fungal outbreaks as radical and unsubstantiated. He pressed play. Static hissed, then Liam's voice thin, breathless, and wrong. Asterisk, it's not ergotism, Aris. Not just. You were right about the history, but you were thinking too. All small. It's in the walls. It's in the water. Asterisk, a wet, hacking cough. Asterisk, the town, Hollow Creek. They don't just live with it. They worship it. Malachi. He calls it the true covenant. God, the smell. Asterisk. A pause. Then, a whisper that scraped Aris's spine. Asterisk. It's the song. I can hear it. The song in the spores. The gray shepherd is coming. Asterisk. Another voice. This one calm and deep, interrupted. Asterisk. He is not coming, son. He is already here. He is the harvest. Asterisk, Liam screamed. It was a short, choked sound, cut off by a sickening wet times crack asterisk. Not a gunshot. It was the sound of a large branch breaking, or a femur. The tape clicked off. Aris Thorne, the disgraced scientist, the rationalist who believed all curses were just undiagnosed plagues, felt the cold, primal fury of a fighter. He packed a duffel bag with survival gear, his old boxing wraps, and a heavy-duty flashlight. He was going to Hollow Creek. Hollow Creek didn't appear on any modern map. It was a forgotten pocket of the Appalachians, a dead-end valley choked by fog and pine. Aris's truck bounced over a road that was more mud than gravel, the no-signal icon on his phone, a permanent fixture. The town itself was drowning in decay. The air was so thick with moisture it was like breathing through a damp cloth. And everywhere, there was the fungus. It wasn't just mold. It was a pale, bioluminescent growth that webbed the trees, dripped from the eaves of the collapsed houses, and pulsed with a sickly, greenish-white light. It made the perpetual fog glow. The smell was overpowering of damp soil, rotting meat, and something sweet, like overripe peaches. The town was silent, but Aris felt eyes on him from the moment he stepped out of his truck. Faces, pale and slack, watched from behind mildewed curtains. He found the sheriff's office, the only building with a light on. A sign, its letters half-peeled, read, Sheriff L. Brody. The man inside matched the office, tired, cluttered, and smelling faintly of bourbon. He was a big man, gone to seed, with a weary face and a drooping mustache. Help you? Brody asked, not looking up from his paperwork. Dr. Aris Thorne. I'm looking for my brother, Liam Thorne, a journalist. Brody sighed, leaning back. The springs of his chair screamed. Yeah, I remember him. Skinny fella, too many questions. He rubbed his face. Look, Doctor. Thorne, your brother poked his nose where it wasn't wanted. Folks round here, they're peculiar. They stick to the old ways. What old ways? The true covenant, Brody spat, as if the words tasted bad. Preacher Malachi's flock. Bunch of snake handlers and spore sniffers, if you ask me. They believe the fungus in them old mines is, well, they believe it's God. Where is he? Malachi? In his church, day and night. But I'm telling you, stay clear. That man's poison. Brody stood, stretching his paunch. Your brother rented the old Miller cabin, up by the ridge. Might be he left something behind. I'll take you up. Best to have a local. Brody seemed to be the only sane man in town. He was blunt, cynical, and dismissive of the local superstition. Aris found himself against his better judgment, trusting him. The Miller cabin was rank with mildew. It had been tossed, but Liam was good at hiding things. Taped beneath the rusted water tank, Aris found a waterproof sleeve containing Liam's field journal. He flipped through the pages. They were filled with frantic sketches of the local fungus, chemical diagrams, and observations. Asterisk, species unknown. Exhibits properties of Ophiocordyceps, but on a massive, network-wide scale. Spores are psychoactive, but also restructuring. Asterisk, asterisk. The hollowed. Locals who consume the fungus. Increased strength. High pain tolerance. Total loss of higher reasoning. The preacher calls it the blessing. Asterisk A later entry. The handwriting tight with panic. Asterisk Malachi isn't just a host. He's the primary vector. The network. It's sentient. It's using him. He calls it the Gray Shepherd. It's not a metaphor. It's a title. It herds its flock. Asterisk. The last page was a single, chilling sentence. Asterisk Brody. He's not a cop. He's the reaper. He sorts the harvest. Asterisk Aris's blood ran cold. He heard a floorboard creak on the porch. He pocketed the journal, his hand instinctively balling into a fist. Brody stood in the doorway, blocking the light. His weary, aw shucks demeanor was gone. In its place was a cold, appraising calm. He wasn't holding a gun. He was holding a rusted, heavy-tined pitchfork, held casually like a walking stick. Find what you were looking for, Doctor. Brody's voice was different, clearer, sharper. Where is my brother, Brody? Aris's voice was a low growl. The shepherd provides for all, Brody said, stepping inside. Your brother. He was chaff. All questions, no faith. We fed him to the roots. But you're different. You're strong. You're wheat. The shepherd will have a use. For you. You're just another fanatic. You're sick. That fungus, it's a parasite. It's rewriting your brain. That's where you're wrong, Doctor. Brody smiled, a terrible, gap-toothed expression. I'm not infected. I'm time's chosen asterisk. I'm the reaper. I'm the one who decides who is pure enough to be a vessel, and who is just meat. He lunged. Brody was fast for a big man. He swung the pitchfork in a wide, horizontal arc. Aris ducked under it, the tine scraping the wall, and drove a hard right cross into Brody's kidneys. It was like punching a side of beef. Brody grunted, more in surprise than pain, and swung the fork's handle back, cracking Aris across the ribs. Aris gasped. The wind knocked out of him, but his training took over. He bobbed, weaved, and stepped inside the bigger man's reach, delivering a rapid, brutal three-punch combination jab, cross, hook to Brody's jaw. Brody stumbled back, spitting a tooth. He laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. You hit hard, Doctor. The shepherd will like that. He'll make you strong. From the doorway, two more men appeared. They were hollowed. Aris had seen the term in Liam's journal, but the reality was a biological nightmare. They were pale, their skin split, with the pale, glowing fungus growing in thick ridges times under times their flesh, tracing their veins. Their joints were wrong. One man's elbow was bent at a reverse angle, the bone clearly broken and reset by thick fungal sinew, giving his arm a terrible, spider-like reach. Hold him, Brody ordered, wiping blood from his chin. The hollowed advanced. They didn't shuffle. They moved with a twitching, unnatural speed. Aris met the first one with a straight right. The man's nose shattered with a wet times crunch asterisk, but he didn't even blink. He just grabbed Aris's wrist. The grip was inhuman. Aris felt the small bones in his hand grind together. He yelled, driving his knee into the hollowed sternum. The creature's ribs cracked, but the grip only tightened. The second one grabbed him from behind. Aris was strong, but this was different. This wasn't fighting men. It was fighting meat puppets. They didn't feel pain. They didn't fear. "Bring him to the mine," Brody commanded. "The shepherd is waiting. It's time for the baptism." Aris fought, kicking and striking, but it was useless. They dragged him from the cabin, his hands bound with thick rope. He saw Brody pick up his duffel bag. "Survival gear?" Brody chuckled, pulling out the heavy-duty flashlight. "You won't need this where you're going, Doctor. Down in the shepherd's heart, there is always light." The mine entrance was a gaping maw in the mountainside, exhaling a visible glowing cloud of spores. The air was so thick, Aris had to fight the urge to gag. It tasted like grave dirt and electricity. Brody shoved him forward. "Walk!" The tunnels were not dark. The bioluminescent fungus coated every surface, pulsing in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. It was a sickly, green-white, illuminating, a horror show. The walls weren't just rock. They were interwoven with the mycelial network, which had incorporated the dead. Skeletons and half-decayed bodies were fused into the tunnel walls, their rib cages split open as if they had given birth to the fungal growths that now consumed them. Aris heard it then. The song Liam had whispered about. It wasn't music. It was a low, resonant thrum, a combination of a million wet, dripping sounds and a deep, somatic vibration that he felt in his teeth. They entered a vast, central cavern. It was a cathedral of rot. The cavern was lit by a central tree of fungus, a pulsating 50-foot-tall mass of gray-white tissue that reached from the floor to the ceiling. It was the heart of the network. The Gray Shepherd, and Liam was bound to it. He was alive, barely. His eyes were wide with a terror that was beyond screaming. Fungal tendrils, like pale white worms, had burrowed into his arms, his chest, and his face, pulsing as they pumped him full of the shepherd's essence. His skin was pale, and as Aris watched, a glowing line of fungus erupted under the skin of his brother's cheek. The entire cult was here, 100 hollowed standing in silent, swaying worship. Their bodies were grotesqueries of broken and reset bones, limbs bent into shapes of terrible efficiency. On a raised platform of fungal matter, sitting on a throne of woven mycelium, was Preacher Malachi. He was barely human. The fungus had consumed him, not as a parasite, but as a partner. It spilled from his eye sockets in glowing root-like tendrils. It formed a pulsating gray cowl over his head. When he spoke, his jaw didn't move. The voice was a chorus, 100 voices speaking as one, echoing from the fungal walls around them. Asterisk, asterisk. The skeptic. The man of salt and iron. You have come. Asterisk, asterisk. Let my brother go, you freak. Aris snarled, straining against the hollowed holding him. Asterisk, asterisk, go. He is being times received. Asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, the chorus voice boomed. Asterisk, asterisk, he is shedding his being to have chorus, broken flesh to be part of the true, the flesh of the earth. You see a plague, Doctor. We see eternity. You see a parasite. We see a god. Asterisk, asterisk. I see an infection, Aris spat. And I see the cure, Malachi. The times that was Malachi. Laughed. The sound was like stones grinding together. Asterisk, asterisk. You cannot cure God, but you can feed him. Brody, prepare the new vessel. Asterisk, asterisk. Brody shoved Aris to his knees before the fungal tree. The Reaper delivers the harvest, Lord, Brody said, his voice thick with fanaticism. You're a fool, Brody, Aris shouted, trying to stall, his mind racing. It's controlling you. Can't you see what it does? It makes us pure, Brody whispered, pressing his pistol to Aris's temple. But as he did, the two hollowed holding Aris's arms suddenly went rigid, their heads snapped back. Asterisk, asterisk. No, Asterisk, asterisk, the chorus voice of Malachi whispered. Asterisk, asterisk, not him. Not with a gun. He is a fighter. He must be broken. He must be times humbled. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Malachi pointed a finger that was more root than bone. Asterisk, asterisk, let him fight. Let him see the futility of his flesh against the will of the shepherd. Asterisk, asterisk, Brody grinned. You heard him, Doctor. The shepherd wants a show. He holstered his pistol and cracked his knuckles. You're a boxer. Let's see you fight the church. The two hollowed released Aris and stepped back, forming a ring with Brody. Aris scrambled to his feet. His hands were still bound. At least cut me loose, you coward. Brody laughed. The shepherd favors no one. He motioned to the hollowed. Break him. The two creatures rushed Aris. He was still a fighter. He dodged the first one's spider-like grab, pivoting on his heel, and slammed his bound fists like a hammer into the side of the second creature's head. The sound was a wet times thwack asterisk. The creature's head snapped sideways, its neck breaking with a sound like a celery stalk. It didn't fall. It slowly, grotesquely turned its head back to face Aris, the bones inside grinding and clicking as the fungal sinews pulled them back into place. It stared at him, its eyes glowing with pale, fungal light. This was the moment Aris's skepticism shattered. This wasn't ergotism. This wasn't a psychoactive compound. This was a biological re-engineering of the human body. The creature lunged again. Aris, in desperation, grabbed the heavy flashlight Brody had dropped from his duffel bag. He swung it like a club, smashing the creature in the face. The lens shattered, but the heavy metal casing caved in the hollowed skull. It finally dropped. The other one was on him. It tackled him, its inhuman strength driving him to the ground. Its fingers, reinforced with fungal chitin, dug into his shoulders. It opened its mouth, and a cloud of pale, glowing spores puffed into his face. Aris held his breath, turning his head, but he felt the spores coat his skin. He felt a terrible itching times, burn times as they tried to find purchase. Yes! Brody roared. Breathe it in! Accept the song! Aris roared, an animal sound of rage and terror. He headbutted the creature, smashing its nose flat, then brought the flashlight up and jammed the shattered end deep into its eye socket. The creature shrieked a high, whistling sound and convulsed. Aris kicked it off him and scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. He looked at Brody. Brody was done playing. He pulled his pistol. The show's over. But Aris's eyes weren't on Brody. They were scanning the cavern, his scientist's mind finally catching up to the fighters. He was in a mine, a cold times mine. What did they use in old mines, especially in the Appalachians? He saw it. Stacked against the far wall, caked in dust and mycelium, were dozens of heavy burlap sacks. The stenciling was almost illegible, but he could make out two words. Sodium chloride. Rock salt. For the winter roads. Liam's journal flashed in his mind. Asterisk. High saline content. Cellular collapse. Osmotic. Shock. Asterisk. Of course. A fungus, no matter how advanced, is a simple organism at its core. It's mostly water. A high concentration of salt wouldn't just poison it, it would desiccate times it. It would suck the water out of its cells instantly. Nearby, on the same wall, was a rusted metal box with a plunger, an old mining detonator. Wires led from it to a section of the wall near the salt bags, set to clear rockfalls. It was a chance. It's a plague, Aris whispered, his eyes on the bags. What? Brody said, advancing. It's a plague! Aris roared, and he ran. Not at Brody, not at Malachi. He ran for the detonator. Asterisk, asterisk. Stop him! Asterisk, asterisk, Malachi's chorus voice shrieked. The god was afraid. Brody fired. The bullet sang past Aris's ear. The hollowed moved to intercept, their unnaturally angled limbs giving them a terrifying loping gait. Aris was faster. He was a boxer. light on his feet. He dodged a grasping fungal hand, ducked under a wild swing from another, and dove the last 5 feet, slamming his shoulder into the cavern wall next to the detonator. Broody leveled his pistol for a final shot. Aris didn't hesitate. He slammed his bound fists down on the rusty plunger. There was no magical explosion. There was a sharp, concussive times, crack times, as the old blasting caps ignited. The force of the explosion didn't shatter rock. It ripped open the 50-year-old burlap sacks, vaporizing the rock salt. A massive, billowing white cloud of sodium chloride dust erupted from the wall, instantly filling the cavern. The effect was immediate. A sound began, a high-pitched, tearing times, scream times that came from Malachi, from the hollowed, from the walls themselves. It was the sound of 1 billion cells collapsing at once. The beautiful glowing light of the cavern extinguished. The fungus times writhed asterisk. The hollowed stopped, frozen in place, then collapsed like puppets with their strings cut. Steam rose from their bodies as the mycelial networks inside them were rendered to liquid gray sludge. On his throne, Malachi Times dissolved asterisk. His body, held together only by the fungal network, sloughed off his bones in wet, steaming chunks, revealing the withered, mummified husk of the man inside. The great central tree shriveled, its bark cracking and falling away, the entire 50-foot structure collapsing into a pile of stinking, dehydrated mush. The song was over. The cavern began to groan. The god had been the mortar holding the ancient mine together. Now, it was coming down. Aris ran to Liam, pulling his knife from his boot and slashing the fungal bonds. Liam was coughing, pale and trembling, but his eyes were clear. "Aris, the song. It's quiet," he whispered, spitting out a gray tendril. "It's dead, Liam. Come on." Aris threw his brother over his shoulder and sprinted. They ran through the dark tunnels, lit now only by Aris's damaged flashlight, dodging falling timbers and the steaming corpses of the hollowed. They burst out of the mine entrance, gasping, into the cold, clean fog of the morning. Behind them, the mine collapsed with a final, earth-shattering roar. Aris laid his brother gently on the damp ground. He looked back at the ruined town. The fog was already beginning to lift, and the pale, glowing fungus on the trees, deprived of its central intelligence, was already starting to dull, turning a lifeless, ashen gray. He was a scientist. He had come to Hollow Creek looking for a disease. He found one. He hadn't fought a demon. He hadn't banished a spirit. He had simply and brutally applied the cure.